welcome to the weather report. The weather for today is pretty gloomy. That's because we're talking about the former bishop of the Wheeling-Charleston Diocese in West Virginia, Bishop Bransfield. Lately, he issued an apology letter to his diocese, but we're going to go over the things that he got in trouble for. He got exposed for these things. When did the news come out that he was spending excessively the diocesan funds? Was it last year sometime, 2019?
No. It was, that's when it came out. He had to resign in 2017 and came out almost immediately afterwards.
Oh, okay. And then more things came to light, and I think it was 2019 whenever there was like all this crazy stuff that came out.
That's when the dam hit, yes.
Yeah, and among the things that he was doing, like he bribed a lot of bishops, so pretty much every nuncio that was in the United States during his, when he was a bishop. He bribed Archbishop Lori a bunch of money, and Archbishop Lori, he faced criticism after removing from a draft the names of some of the bishops who had received large checks from Bransfield. He sent this draft to the Vatican, and with the names removed of the bishops who Bransfield bribed. Bransfield was a friend of McCarrick, and he was also in the McCarrick Network, which Cardinal Farrell was part of the McCarrick Network as well, if you remember. Farrell was McCarrick's roommate for 6 years. Bransfield sent Farrell $29,000 to furnish his apartment. And one interesting thing I found was that there was a Wheeling Cathedral trip to Washington. A bunch of the parishioners took a pilgrimage to Washington, one of the shrines there. Bransfield sent them off on the tour buses that they took, and then Bransfield took a private jet to Washington, spent $7,000. And this is coming from the diocese. This isn't from Bransfield's own bank account. He's using diocesan funds to do this stuff. And he took a lot of it from the Wheeling Hospital, which was probably one of the more concerning things. And I went over just a few things there. Do you have anything else major that you want to add?
Oh, let's see. Let me just go down the list of, this is just his financial malfeasance. Oh, let me find it here. Okay, in his last year in office, Bransfield chartered a private luxury jet 19 times at a cost of $142,000. Over the course of his 13-year tenure, he spent $970,000 on private chartered jets because he's too good to fly first class. In his last year in office, of the 12 months, he spent 4 of those months outside of the diocese on church-funded travel. He spent more than $4.6 million on renovations to his home, which was sold by the new bishop for $1.2 million. Yes, that's $3.4 million that basically has just been destroyed and couldn't help anyone or do anything at all.
Yeah, that's a significant net loss. When you talk about business, I mean, you generally sell your house for more than you
put into it. Yeah. He spent $662,000 on luxury hotel accommodations and airfares. By the way, all these figures come from the Vatican's own report on Bransfield. I am not making this up. Okay. He spent $139,000 on dining out, $75,000 on rental cars, and $68,000 on limousines. He spent $61,000 on cufflinks at the exclusive hand collection in Washington, D.C. If you were his friend, you got a real nice set of custom cufflinks. He's a good guy.
Maybe more than one?
Yeah, maybe one. Yeah.
Yeah,
so that is just some of his financial malfeasance.
Well, and that's not talking about the sexual predatory behavior. He was accused of being, sexual harassment against different seminarians, and I think part of the bribes were used to pay off people to keep quiet. At least you can kind of connect the dots a little bit there.
Absolutely, he was sued in civil court by one of those people, and there was an out-of-court settlement, which of course is there's nothing to be said about it, but I'm sure he wrote a big check. Because, of course, he wrote a big check to the diocese for $441,000 that everyone, Bransfield, Brennan, and even the congregation of bishops, they all agreed he took that money and that he had to return it in justice. So,
Yeah, that was part of his penalty, was to pay the money back and
issue a public apology. He issued a public apology to the faithful. Now, for 10 years, I was a member of the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston. I've met the bishop twice. He confirmed some of them, not my own children, but the children that I was responsible for training in confirmation. And Bishop Brennan said, it is up to the people to decide how they will accept this apology. So let me read the apology of the Most Reverend Michael J. Bransfield, Bishop Emeritus of the Diocese of Wheeling-Charleston, dated August 15th, 2020. Letter to the faithful. I am ready to apologize for any scandal or wonderment caused by words or actions attributed to me during my tenure as Bishop of the Wheeling-Charleston Diocese. First, during my tenure, I was reimbursed for certain expenditures that have been called into question as excessive, and I have been advised that I should reimburse a certain amount of money to the diocese. I have now done so, even though I believe that such reimbursements to me were proper. Second, there have been allegations that by certain words and actions, I have caused certain priests and seminarians to feel sexually harassed. Although that was never my intent, if anything that I said or did caused others to feel that way, then I am profoundly sorry. I hope that this letter will help to achieve a kind of reconciliation with the faithful of the diocese. Yours in Christ, Michael J. Bransfield. The end. That's it.
yeah, so
Was that an apology? I don't think so.
no, I think it was more like a middle finger, but
Pretty much. Pretty much. And Philip Lauber said exactly the same thing. That is exactly the kind of apology that is delivered with one finger.
even though I believe that such reimbursements to me were proper.
No, it was all proper, and I didn't do anything.
No, he considers it a reimbursement. Everyone else considers it theft.
Yes, yes. Although he's not being charged in any court of law because the diocese would have to charge him, and that's not going to happen. And let me just say this. Well, first of all, let me say a good word for Bishop Brennan, his replacement. Bishop Brennan was getting stonewalled by Bishop Bransfield for 5 months. And he's like, Bishop Brennan was thrown into this situation, and he thought he could just play this off, or maybe he didn't, but he found out very quickly that the laity is not having any of it and that they're outraged. And it isn't going away, and people are still outraged. So he has to deal with this. He must deal with it. He knows this. It's got to be done. So, and Bransfield was giving him the go slow, was actually not returning his calls for 5 months. So, Brennan went on a local West Virginia outlet and went public and said, he won't talk to me. He hasn't talked to me. He hasn't talked to anyone for 5 months. Funnily enough, soon after, the deal was made and the apology came out, because he only came out with this about 2 weeks ago. So kudos for Brennan for putting a little pressure on them. But the bishops are so happy about this because they are so pleased. Never in the history of the Catholic Church has, according to them, has a bishop been made to apologize to the laity. And never have they ever had to pay a dime back of any money that they had ever stolen. This is a great red letter day. We should all be so very happy. Yeah, well, I was a member of that faithful, and I want to see him like his buddy McCarrick. I want to see him defrocked. If that makes me a bad person, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything that he did that would really, not justify the way that you feel. So.
Well, it's not about my feelings. He broke laws. He stole money. He put hands on seminarians. It's horrifying. And he's still a bishop. He is still a bishop. Not only is he still he should be, I don't know, should he be excommunicated? Not up for me to say. Should he be laicized? I think so. But should he be the bishop emeritus, who doesn't have the right to even set foot in the diocese, who doesn't have the right to say a public mass, who doesn't have the right to be buried in that diocese? All those things have been taken away from him, and more should be. And of course, he settled for pennies on the dollar of what he stole.
And he still gets a pension from the diocese.
Yes, he still gets $2,250 a month. And that's a cut from the $6,200 that he was going to get. And of course, they're still paying his long-term care insurance. But he doesn't get a private secretary, he doesn't get a private chapel, and we don't like him anymore. So there's that.
Well, and there's one question here. How did he come up with the money to pay off $400-some thousand?
Well, he lived high off the church, and he must have saved something, even though he spent even more.
Or do you think his buddy McCarrick is kind of giving him a little bit of...
I don't know. Maybe his buddy McCarrick put pressure on the head of the Congregation of Bishops, Cardinal Mark Ouellette, to, cut the best possible deal. Who knows? I don't know. It's idle supposition. I'm just saying.
Well, that was your interesting story for the day. So, if you're part of this diocese, then, let your voice be heard, because we are the lady, we will not be silent. And thank you so much for watching.